It was the kind of bitter disagreement usually reserved for back rooms with all doors closed and no cameras allowed. But today it was carried out in full view of the cameras as President Trump and Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer conducted a no-holds-barred freewheeling argument about funding for the border wall and shutting down the government.
One thing I think we can agree on is we shouldn't shut down the government over a dispute. And you want to shut it down. You keep talking about it.
The last time, Chuck, you shut it down.
No.
And then you opened it up very quickly. And
20 times.
I don't want to do what you did.
20 times you have called for, I will shut down the government if I don't get my wool. None of us have said.
You want to know something?
You've said it.
Okay, you want to put that on my...
You've said it.
I'll take it.
Okay, good.
You know what I'll say? Yes. If we don't get what we want, one way or the other, whether it's through you, through a military, through anything you want to call, I will shut down the government.
Okay,
absolutely.
fair enough.
And I am proud.
It was the first meeting between the three leaders in over a year, and it was supposed to be closed to the press. But over the objections of the Democrats, President Trump allowed the cameras to record the drama, and there was plenty of it. Trump and the Democratic leader in the House, Nancy Pelosi, tangled too when the president implied that she was talking tough because she wants to nail down the Democratic votes to become House Speaker.
I also know that, Nancy's in a situation where it's not easy for her to talk right now, but we have to have border security.
Mr. President, please don't characterize the strength that I bring to this meeting as the leader of the House Democrats who just won a big victory.
We've gained in the Senate. Nancy, we've gained in the Senate. Excuse me, did we win the Senate? We won the Senate.
After the heated meeting, the insults apparently continued. Pelosi briefed House Democrats in a closed-door meeting where she's reported to have said about President Trump's behavior, "It's like a manhood thing for him," as if manhood could ever be associated with him. Now, in the meantime, though, real people can be affected by this. The most immediate issue here is funding the government because the deadline is coming up quickly, and without at least a temporary agreement on funding between the president and Congress, some Americans could start to feel the impact of a shutdown very quickly. And remember, the holiday season is now upon us.
So my next guest spoke with the president about all of this for quite some time, a short time ago. He says the president is right to demand more, tweeting, quote, "You are right to want more border security funding, including wall money. They are wrong to say no. Put DACA on the table and make them say no to the wall and DACA. Hashtag dig in." Senator Lindsey Graham joins me now. Senator, good to have you with us this evening. What did the president say after this rambunctious meeting that we all witnessed in the Oval Office? How did he feel about it?
Well, the first thing he asked me, how did I do? I said, I thought you did great. I thought you made a very compelling case that you need more wall funding to secure the country. Secure borders it's not a manhood thing, it's a national security thing. And here's what's so hypocritical. In February of this year, 44 Democrats, including Schumer, voted for a bill that had $25 billion for a wall. In 2013, Schumer helped create a bill that I was part of that had $8 billion for a wall, $42 billion for securing the border in other ways. So they want Trump to lose more than they want the country to win. They voted for large amounts of money to secure the border before. They just don't want to do it for Trump.
So there's a lot of, sides that are having trouble with this idea, with this vote. There's a suggestion that a $5 billion wall funding bill could pass the House in the coming days, and we're going to see what happens with that. Nancy Pelosi wants to be Speaker. She needs 218 votes. She clearly feels like backing any solution in this is going to make that problematic for her, right?
Well, she's got a political problem. The country has a border security problem. Here's what I would tell the president. If they voted for $25 billion in February of this year, insist on $5 billion now. The Caravans have created more uncertainty on the border, not less. What signal are we sending to the world if we reduce funding for border security in light of increased threats? We're inviting more caravans. So the president is right. This liberal arrogance has to come to an end. Nancy Pelosi said, I will never put DACA associated with the wall. Well, we did that in February. So this idea that the president needs to back down doesn't make sense to me. He needs to dig in and get the very Democrats who voted for $25 billion to give him $5 because we need the money now more than ever.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about compassion and there's all of this concern for the people who are trying to get into this country on the part of Democrats. And then the president offered 1.8 million DACA recipients, which was bigger than the number that they initially wanted. And they turned that deal down.
They want him to lose. They want, okay, so they put an 8-month-old baby under the wall a couple of days ago. You'll never convince me. I've been doing this for a decade. I've done everything I can to find a bipartisan solution to this. You'll never convince me that the president's demand for $5 billion to secure our border, including a wall, is unreasonable. Again, in 2013, Democrats had an $8 billion wall plan. In February of this year, 2018, they all voted for $25 billion for wall and border security. This is all about politics. The president needs to dig in and make them pay a price. They're overplaying their hand. If I were the president, I would put DACA on the table and see if they say no to that. Wall plus DACA would be a good deal for this country.
So show me how you see this playing out. As we head to Christmas and New Year's, there's discussions about all of you folks staying on the Hill through the holidays. And the president said, you know what, I feel so strongly about this issue that I'm willing to shut the government down. We're only talking about 25% of it. Most of the funding is already passed. Do you think that's going to happen?
I think the president and people like me need to make a case to the American people that they're denying this president money that makes sense. The difference between $1.6 billion and $5 billion is what we're talking about. Again, in February, 44 Democrats voted for $25 billion. Right. It's not the money, it's the desire to have Trump fail. And he needs to deal with it now. It's only going to get worse next year. He's in a good spot. Dig in, make the case that this money is necessary, and challenge the Democrats to work with you on DACA plus the wall. And if they say no to that, that means they really do hate Trump more than they care about the country, and that will blow up in their face.
What about the politics on the president's side? Here's the latest Marist poll. 57% say that they would like to see a compromise from the president to prevent gridlock, also known as a shutdown. 36% say don't compromise to prevent it. 8% are not sure. But when you look at the numbers of Republicans that were polled, they want him to do exactly what you said, and that's dig in on the wall. So how does this play politically for the president and his own party, ultimately?
He's asking for $5 billion. His border plan, we had $25 billion on the table that Democrats voted for in February. He's not asking for all the money. He's asking for a fourth of the money to deal with the damage done by the Caravan and to secure our border and to stop future caravans from coming. A compromise, to me, is taking less than was on the table before so he can get through this year. You feel like that's
already a compromise?
Yes.
Look into your crystal ball. We'll look towards Christmas, New Year's. Are you guys all still up there working? Does this get resolved? Or does the president throw up his hands and say, you know what, I'm going to turn to a military option again, because he said as much in the Oval Office today?
Well, I'd hate to take money out of our military budget because we need it for other things. Here's what I think. The president's on the right side of this issue. He's got to deal with this obstruction now, this hypocrisy now, this liberal arrogance now.
So you recommend a shutdown if necessary?
I recommend sticking to securing the border that is broken, and the difference between 1.6 and 5 billion is what we're talking about. It's a reasonable request. We need more money for the border, and if you don't see more threats to our border in this year versus last, then you're just not watching the same movie I'm watching. The president needs to make the case he's being reasonable, and they hate him so much. They want him to lose and the country to lose. I mean, at the end of the day, they'd rather him lose than the country win. Stick with it, Mr. President. You're on the right side of this issue. You will win this case with the American people.
The Trump shutdown is something that can be avoided, that the American people do not need at this time of economic uncertainty, people losing jobs, the market in a mood, and the rest. It's a luxury. The Trump shutdown is a luxury the American people cannot afford.
If he sticks to his position for a $5 billion wall, he will get no wall and he will get a shutdown. This Trump shutdown, this temper tantrum that he seems to throw, will not get him his wall, and it'll hurt a lot of people because he will cause a shutdown. He admitted he wanted a shutdown. It's hard to believe that he would want that. The president said things are working quite well at the border. Well, we want to give him the same thing he had last year. If they're working well last year, they should work well this year. He shouldn't shut down the government.
If you're a Democrat, you say Trump now has taken full responsibility for the Trump shutdown. And if you're Trump, You look at that video and you think, I just manhandled these two people on live television, and they look like complete buffoons. If you just look at the body language there, he was cutting them off. He was holding up pieces of paper. Nancy, Nancy, Nancy. Chuck's sitting there like a weakling. Nancy's getting interrupted the whole time.
This is what I mean.
It was an extraordinary physical performance. Yeah. At the end of the day, though, if you take no, I mean, look, on a debate stage, he did the same thing with Hillary. But these are two weaker people, and he, basically tag teamed both of them until they look like blithering idiots. At the end of the day, though, he says, I'm shutting this down for border security, and I don't care if I take the heat. This is the last chance he's ever going to have to get the wall funding. It's either do or die. He's not going to get it in the next 2 years, and he may not get it in the next 6. He has to go to the mattress on this. He has to own the issue, and if he doesn't get it, his supporters are going to show up in the general and say, you know what? You had 4 years to build the wall, and we didn't bring it together.
To that point,
what's that about?